respect it. Don't let his quiet fool you. Just because he stopped texting every hour, just because his voice is no longer showing up in your day the way it used to, doesn't mean you disappeared from his heart. Sometimes silence is not absence. Sometimes silence is confusion. Sometimes silence is pride. And sometimes the loudest feelings are hidden behind the quietest people. If you've ever laid awake wondering, did he forget me? Then stay with me, because today we're going to talk about the truth nobody tells you about what silence really means. See, one thing I've learned about people, and especially about men, is this: quiet does not always mean empty. You have to stop assuming that silence means somebody stopped caring. Sometimes silence means they don't know what to say. Sometimes silence means they are fighting something inside themselves they don't even understand. Now, let me say something to you that might hit your heart a little differently today. A man can be quiet and stupid. I think about you every single day. Oh, yes, he can. He can go to work, laugh around people, scroll on his phone, act like life is normal, and still hear your voice in the back of his mind. He can sit in a crowded room and suddenly remember the way you looked at him during a moment nobody else noticed. He can pretend everything is okay while secretly carrying memories he doesn't know how to let go of. See, people think emotions are loud, but sometimes emotions are silent. Sometimes feelings sit in the shadows. And the truth is, many people are carrying emotions they never learn how to express. You ever notice how some people can love deeply but struggle to communicate? That's because life taught them survival before vulnerability. Life taught them how to hide pain before speaking truth. Maybe he grew up believing weakness was dangerous. Maybe he learned to shut down instead of open up. Maybe every time he felt deeply, life handed him disappointment. So instead of saying what he feels, he disappears into silence. Now listen carefully, because this next part matters. His quiet does not automatically mean he stopped caring, but, and this is important, it also doesn't mean you stop valuing yourself waiting for someone to figure themselves out. There's wisdom in understanding someone without abandoning yourself. See, too many people lose themselves trying to decode silence. What does it mean? Why hasn't he called? Did I do something wrong? Why does he seem distant? And suddenly somebody else's confusion becomes your emotional prison. You stop sleeping peacefully. You overthink every conversation. You replay old memories like they're clues in a mystery. And I need you to hear me today. Your peace cannot depend on somebody else's communication style. That's a lesson life teaches the hard way. You can understand someone and still choose yourself. You can love someone and still protect your heart. You can acknowledge that somebody thinks about you without making their silence your responsibility. See, here's what people don't talk about. Silence can come from fear of rejection, fear of vulnerability, fear of getting hurt, fear of admitting they care more than they plan to. Sometimes somebody goes quiet because feeling something real scares them. And if you've ever cared deeply for somebody emotionally unavailable, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They show you glimpses, little moments, unexpected kindness, deep conversations, small signs that something meaningful exists. Then suddenly, distance, quiet, confusion, and you're left wondering what happened. But let me tell you something about human nature. People often withdraw when emotions become real, not because they don't care, but because caring suddenly feels dangerous. And maybe somebody watching this today needs to hear this truth. Just because somebody misses you doesn't mean they know how to show up for you. That's hard. Be calm. See, part of us wants love to equal action every time. We want people to say the words. We want effort, consistency, presence. And honestly, that desire is valid, because real connection requires communication. But human beings are complicated. Some people love with fear. Some people care with confusion. Some people miss you while convincing themselves they shouldn't. And I know somebody listening right now has been staring at their phone wondering if they're forgotten. Let me ask you something. Have you ever walked into a place and suddenly remembered someone? A smell, a song, a street, a memory. You weren't trying to think about them, but there they were, right back in your heart for a moment. That happens to people more than they admit. People leave emotional fingerprints. The right person doesn't just disappear from memory because time passed, especially if the connection meant something real. Now, I'm not here to sell you fantasy. I'm not saying every quiet person secretly wants to come back. Number Let's be grown about this. Some people move on. Some people choose distance. Some people are simply not meant to stay. But there are also moments when silence is not the ending you think it is. Sometimes silence is somebody wrestling with emotions they cannot organize. Sometimes silence is regret sitting quietly in somebody's chest. Sometimes silence is somebody replaying conversations, wondering if they handled things wrong. Sometimes silence is pride stopping someone from reaching out. Oh yes, pride has destroyed more relationships than hate ever could. People want to reconnect, but ego whispers, don't text first. People miss someone, but fear whispers, what if they moved on? People care, but insecurity says, what if I'm unwanted? And now both people sit in silence thinking about each other. A tragedy built from misunderstanding. But let me shift this conversation for a moment because this part matters deeply. Whether you is thinking about you or not, your life still matters. You still matter. Your healing matters. Your confidence matters. Your growth matters. Because one of the biggest mistakes people make is pausing their entire future waiting for clarity from somebody else. Life keeps moving. Dreams still matter. Joy still matters. And sometimes the greatest power you have is learning to stand tall in uncertainty. Not bitterness, not anger, not pretending you don't care. Just strength, quiet strength. The kind that says, I care, but I won't lose myself. That kind of energy changes people. Because when somebody sees that you stop chasing, stop begging, stop proving your worth, something shifts. Not manipulation, not games, growth. There is power in emotional maturity. There is power in peace. See, desperation pushes people away. Confidence creates space. And when somebody realizes you're no longer waiting in sadness but standing strong in your own life, sometimes that quiet gets louder in their mind. Sometimes absence teaches lessons presence could not. Sometimes people don't realize your value until your energy is no longer available the same way. That's life. But here's the danger. You cannot make your happiness dependent on whether somebody comes back. That's where people lose themselves. You don't grow just to be chosen. You grow because you deserve peace. You heal because your heart deserves freedom. You become stronger because life demands it. And if somebody returns, beautiful. If they don't, you're still becoming somebody powerful. See, real confidence sounds like this. I care deeply. I gave love honestly. I learned from the experience. And I refuse to let heartbreak define my future. That kind of mindset changes everything. Because now you're no longer trapped asking, is he still thinking about me? Instead, you begin asking a better question. Am I still becoming the person I'm proud of? And that right. That changes your life because people come and go. But your relationship with yourself, that stays. And if somebody truly cared if the connection mattered, you'd be surprised how often quiet people still carry thoughts they never speak aloud. The memory of your kindness, the comfort of your presence, the lessons you taught them, the version of themselves they became around you. Those things don't disappear easily. So no, don't let this quiet fool you, but don't let it control you either. Because your story is bigger than somebody else's silence. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do is stop chasing answers and start choosing peace. You know what's interesting about silence? Most people misunderstand it. They think silence is the opposite of caring. They think if somebody really cared, they would always know exactly what to say, exactly what to do, exactly how to show up. But life teaches you something different. Sometimes the people who feel the deepest are the very ones who struggle the most to express it. Now, I want you to picture something for a moment. Imagine a man sitting alone late at night. The world is quiet, no distractions, no noise, no pretending, just him and his thoughts. And suddenly, out of nowhere, something reminds him of you. Maybe it's a song, maybe it's a memory, maybe it's the way someone laughed and it sounded almost like you. And for just a moment, everything comes rushing back. The conversations, the comfort, the connection, the things he never said, the mistakes he wishes he handled differently. See, what people don't understand is that memory has power. Real connection leaves traces. You don't simply erase someone who mattered, especially somebody who touched your spirit in a meaningful way. And I know somebody watching this has been wondering, if I mattered, why is he so quiet? That's the question, isn't it? Why silence? Why distance? Why confusion? Well, let's talk honestly. Sometimes people go quiet because they are overwhelmed by emotions they don't know how to process. And especially in relationships, many people are carrying emotional habits they learned long before they ever met you. You ever notice how somebody can want closeness and still push it away? That contradiction confuses people. But it happens every day. Somebody craves connection but fears vulnerability. Somebody misses intimacy but avoids emotional risk. Somebody thinks about you constantly but doesn't know how to bridge the distance they created. And if we're being truthful, pride plays a role too. Oh, pride is powerful. Pride makes people stay silent when their heart wants to speak. Pride says, don't call first. Pride says, what if they reject me? Pride says, act like you're okay. Meanwhile, inside there's a storm nobody sees. Life has a strange way of humbling people. Sometimes it takes distance for somebody to truly understand what mattered. Sometimes ES people don't fully appreciate peace until chaos enters their life. Sometimes they don't understand consistency until inconsistency hurts them. And sometimes they don't realize your value until your absence becomes real. That doesn't mean your worth depends on somebody recognizing it. Your value was always there, but human beings have a painful habit of learning through loss. And I want to tell you a story. I once heard about a man who thought he had forever. You know the type? He cared, but he assumed tomorrow would always come. He thought there would always be another conversation, another chance, another opportunity to fix things. So when problems came, instead of communicating, he pulled away. He became quiet, distant, emotionally unavailable. Not because he stopped caring, but because silence felt easier than honesty. Weeks passed, then months. Life kept moving, but something unexpected happened. The very quiet he thought would protect him started hunting him, because now there was space. And space has a funny way of making emotions louder. He started remembering little things. The way she encouraged him when life felt heavy. The way she believed in him before he believed in himself. The laughter, the peace, the safety. And suddenly he realized something painful. He missed someone he never properly appreciated. Now here's the hard truth. By the time some people understand your value, life may already be moving in a different direction. That's why I tell people this all the time. Don't spend your whole life waiting for somebody else to catch up emotionally. Hear me clearly. Understanding someone is beautiful. Patience is beautiful. Compassion is beautiful. But abandoning yourself while waiting, that's dangerous. Because while you're sitting there wondering if you're still on his mind, life is quietly asking another question. Are you still on your own mind? Are you still taking care of yourself? Still growing? Still dreaming? Still healing? Still building a life that makes you proud? Because pain has a sneaky way of making people forget themselves. You stop focusing on your goals. You stop laughing the same. You stop trusting yourself. You become emotionally stuck in a chapter that life keeps trying to move you beyond. And maybe today is the day somebody listening decides enough is enough. Not bitterness, not revenge, just growth, real growth. The kind where you stop begging for clarity and start creating peace. The kind where you stop chasing reassurance and start rebuilding confidence. The kind where you stop obsessing over whether somebody misses you and start becoming someone you admire. And let me tell you something powerful. People notice energy. They feel change. When somebody sees that you're healing, glowing, rebuilding, smiling again, carrying yourself differently, something shifts. Not because you're pretending not to care, but because you finally remember. You edge your worth. And there is nothing more attractive than somebody who chooses dignity over desperation. Nothing. You ever notice how people often come back emotionally the moment you stop forcing things? There's a reason for that. Pressure disappears. The emotional noise quiets down. And suddenly they have room to feel what they avoided. That quiet you fear, sometimes it becomes the very thing that makes somebody realize what they lost. But I want to be careful here because this message matters deeply. You do not heal to make somebody regret losing you. That can't be the goal. You heal because your soul deserves peace. You heal because heartbreak is not supposed to become your permanent address. You heal because pain came to teach you something, not imprison you. And one of the hardest lessons relationships teach us is this. Love is not just chemistry. Love is timing, communication, emotional maturity, effort, consistency. Because yes, somebody can care about you deeply and still not be ready. That truth hurts. but maturity means accepting reality without losing hope in yourself. And somebody out there needs to hear this. Stop measuring your worth by somebody else's silence. Silence can mean many things: fear, pride, confusion, regret, overwhelm. But it never gets to define your value. You define that. You decide how your story continues. And maybe the biggest transformation comes when you stop asking, "Why is he quiet?" and start asking, "What is this season trying to teach me?" Maybe it's teaching patience, maybe boundaries, maybe emotional strength, maybe self-respect, maybe the courage to stop settling for uncertainty, because life has a funny way of revealing things over time. The people who care eventually reveal themselves. The people who are serious eventually make effort. And the people who aren't, they teach you lessons. Painful lessons sometimes, but lessons that shape wisdom. Listen to me carefully, because this next part might be exactly what somebody needs today. Just because someone is thinking about you does not mean you must pause your life. That's important. You can still love somebody from a distance and choose yourself. You can still wonder about someone and continue healing. You can still carry memories without carrying emotional chains. That is maturity. That is strength. That is growth. Because the strongest people aren't the ones who stop caring. The strongest people are the ones who care deeply and still move forward. The ones who say, "Yes, that mattered. Yes, I missed parts of it. Yes, I hope for more. But I will not abandon my future." That mindset changes everything. And if he truly cared, if you genuinely mattered to him, trust me, silence doesn't erase memory. Quiet doesn't erase connection. Time doesn't erase impact. People remember how you made them feel, especially when what you gave was real. Let me tell you, I use something nobody says out loud enough. Sometimes the quiet hurts more than the goodbye. At least with goodbye, there's an ending. There are words. There's clarity. Even if it hurts, there's something your heart can hold on to. But silence leaves questions. Silence leaves confusion. Silence leaves you sitting there at 2 a.m. wondering if the memories meant the same thing to them that they meant to you. And if you've ever been there, if you've ever stared at your phone wondering why somebody went quiet when everything felt meaningful, then you understand exactly what I'm talking about. Because uncertainty has a strange way of exhausting the human heart. You replay conversations. You search for clues. You overanalyze every detail. You wonder if you said too much, or maybe not enough. You question moments that once felt beautiful. And suddenly peace feels far away. But I need you to hear this today. Do not let silence rewrite history. Just because if somebody became quiet does not mean what you shared was fake. Let that sink in. Sometimes beautiful things end awkwardly. Sometimes meaningful connections become complicated. Sometimes two people care deeply and still struggle to make things work. Life is complicated like that. People are complicated like that. And one of the hardest truths to accept is this: someone can genuinely care about you and still lack the emotional tools to love you correctly. That truth right there, that changes how you see things. Because suddenly you stop blaming yourself for somebody else's emotional limitations. You stop carrying guilt that was never yours to carry. You stop asking, "Why wasn't I enough?" and start realizing, maybe it was never about enough. Maybe they were fighting battles inside themselves you couldn't see. Maybe they were carrying fears they never learned to name. Maybe they were confused. Maybe they were emotionally unavailable. Maybe they wanted closeness. You fear commitment. Maybe they missed you every day and still didn't know how to return. Because humans are contradictory. We want love and fear vulnerability. We crave connection and avoid discomfort. We miss people and still stay silent. That contradiction exists more often than people admit. There's a story I think about sometimes. There was a woman who spent nearly a year wondering why someone she loved suddenly became distant. At first, she blamed herself. She replayed everything, every text, every conversation, every disagreement. She convinced herself she had somehow ruined everything. And because she cared deeply, she waited, quietly, hoping, wondering, believing someday he'd explain. But something changed in her over time. She got tired. Not tired of caring, tired of suffering. There's a difference. And one day she woke up and realized something powerful. She had spent so much time wondering whether she was on his mind that she disappeared for. To rhyme her own life. She stopped pursuing dreams, stopped enjoying mornings, stopped laughing fully, stopped feeling like herself. And that realization hit hard because heartbreak is painful. But losing yourself while heartbroken, that's even harder. So she made a decision. She decided to choose herself again. Not out of anger, not to prove a point, not to make somebody jealous. She simply got tired of neglecting her own spirit. She started rebuilding, little by little. She read books again, started walking in the mornings, spent time with people who made her feel alive, started healing old wounds she ignored for years, and slowly, she changed. Not overnight. Healing never works that way, but gradually, and here's where life gets interesting. Months later, the quiet man came back. Of course, life has funny timing. He reached out, said he'd been thinking about her, said he regretted things, said he missed what they had. And you know what surprised her man? You asked? For the first time, she wasn't waiting anymore. She listened. She cared, but she was different now. Stronger, wiser, clearer, because healing had taught her something. Missing someone doesn't automatically mean they belong in your future. That lesson right there, that's maturity, because love without consistency creates confusion. Care without effort creates imbalance. Words without action create disappointment. And somebody watching this today might need to hear this clearly. If someone misses you, eventually effort matters. Yes, people struggle emotionally. Yes, people get scared. Yes, pride and fear exist. But eventually, healthy connection requires courage. It requires communication. It requires showing up. Because real love cannot survive forever on assumptions. At some point, honesty becomes necessary. And this is why I always say, do not confuse potential with reality. Do not fall in love with who someone could be while ignoring who they currently are. That hurts sometimes because hope is powerful. Hope makes us believe people will change. Hope keeps us emotionally invested. Hope whispers, maybe tomorrow. But growth teaches discernment. Growth teaches balance. Growth says, I can care about someone and still be honest about what's happening. That's emotional wisdom. And let me tell you something else. Quiet people often think more than they speak. Oh, yes. The silent ones, sometimes they replay moments endlessly. They think about things they never said. They revisit memories privately. They carry emotions in ways nobody notices. And if you ever matter deeply, chances are your impact stayed with them longer than they admitted. But Tan, hear me carefully, being remembered is not the same thing as being chosen. I need somebody to understand that today. You can live in someone's thoughts and still deserve more clarity. You can matter deeply to someone and still need consistency. You can be unforgettable. ND still require healthy communication. Do not lower your standards just because somebody cares quietly. Love should not feel like emotional guessing every day. Love should not feel like anxiety. Love should not make you question your worth constantly. Healthy love brings peace, not perfection. Peace, the kind of peace where communication exists, effort exists, respect exists, safety exists, and maybe somebody needs permission today to stop romanticizing confusion. Because sometimes we get attached to emotional mystery. We convince ourselves silence is depth, distance is complexity, confusion is passion. But often, healthy love is simpler than that. Not easy, but clear. And if somebody truly wants to build something meaningful with you, eventually effort becomes visible because intentions hidden forever become excuses. That's truth. And maybe his quiet means he thinks about you. Maybe he misses you. Maybe he regrets things. Maybe he replays moments when they're watching. Maybe. But your life cannot stay paused inside somebody else's uncertainty. You've got dreams to chase, healing to do, confidence to rebuild, joy to rediscover. Because this season of confusion, it is not forever. And one day, listen to me carefully, you're going to look back at this version of yourself. The one overthinking, the one hurting, the one wondering if you mattered. And you're going to smile softly because you'll realize something beautiful. You survived, you grew, you became wiser. And most importantly, you learned that your value never depended on somebody else's silence.